Hello, everyone. This is the Technology Panel. I am Reginald Grant. Please introduce yourselves.
So, India, you want to go first?
I was just going to start. Hi, everyone. I'm so happy to be here. My name is India Alston. I am CEO of Beam Creative Agency. We are a one-stop shop based here in Los Angeles. Native Washingtonian. Went to Stanford University and did my undergraduate in African and African American Studies. Also completed my master's at Georgetown in leadership in their executive master's program. For the last 12 years, I've been in marketing, branding, and multimedia production, doing work in several industries, including consumer goods, tech, pharmaceutical, entertainment, sports, video games, comic books, mobile apps, you name it, we've had our hands in a little bit of everything. So we've done that both domestic and abroad in Europe and the Middle East. And so I'm just very excited to be here as my company is also transitioning to more of a heavy focus on heavy integration of technology into what we do with entertainment and how we do work for social impact. So our brand is entertainment and technology for social impact. And I'm excited to be here. Talk to you guys. Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Awesome. So I'll go next. So Cliff Pierre. My name is Cliff Pierre. I get the lovely pleasure of working with Mr. Grant, Barbara, and Dr. Rosie. I specialize in online advertising. I have a digital marketing agency named Revenue Boomers, and we provide services, whether it's social media marketing, search engine optimization, or just web design. We really specialize in helping businesses understand the importance of building systems and processes, specifically for the lead generation side and driving sales. And we also focus on helping businesses leverage their expertise to create courses to make a lot of money with their course creation as well. And I'm also in the crypto space and doing some stuff in the NFT space as well. And I'm also releasing a book that I just released. It's called What is Bitcoin? Understanding Bitcoin and Blockchain Technology Made Simple. And I'll provide a link for that. The release date will most likely be, the pre-release date will be May 14th is what I'm aiming for. But I will provide a link to everybody and they can join the list and they'll actually get the official announcement once I do make that public. So thank you all so much. And I'll pass to Scott or John.
I'll jump in. So my name's Scott Salandy-Defour. I'm also from the DMV or DC area, like India. Currently in LA. I call myself a reformed management consultant. Used to do management consulting, specifically focused on emerging technology.
1 second,
and
Scott.
right now,
tabs open. Please check your browsers.
Close your other stage. If you have the stage open on the front end, it'll have a back end noise. So you want to close all the other tabs and just make sure you're only on the backstage.
Continue, Scott.
Okay. Yeah. Right now there's two kind of areas that I'm sort of focused on. One is energy in emerging markets. So we have a startup called Liquid Star, where we're providing electricity to people who don't have it, mostly in sub-Saharan African countries. And then currently right now, I'm also working on a startup that's at the intersection of augmented reality and NFTs. It's called Magnet, and it's about how do you change the way people interact with like clothing using some of this emerging technology. So I'm happy to be a part of the panel and talk more about what we're doing and just kind of tech and the space of AR, machine vision, NFTs, and then if anyone wants to know, also energy in Africa. So
wow, dynamic panel. Always glad to be surrounded by such smart people, and it's just an honor and privilege to be here today. So why don't you talk a little bit about NFTs and that stuff? I know Cliff and Scott, that's a space we're delving into. So
cool. So I'll jump in really quickly with NFTs. So actually 2 years ago, I was based in Hong Kong, and I had reached out to Christie's Hong Kong with this idea, and I was explained to them, I was like, for artists, this concept of NFTs or non-fungible tokens and this idea of digital scarcity would be super valuable for you to explore, to create new ways for you to sort of work and partner with the artists and new revenue streams for the artists. So I think it was a little bit early because they kind of responded to me and then they ghosted me, just like kind of how dating works, I guess, a little bit. Yeah, and then earlier this year, I kind of see that Christie's sold an NFT for $60 million, right? So that was where I was like, okay, I was kind of on the right track, just a little bit too early. And I think anyone that's doing a startup or working in tech, the outside of like how smart you are, everything else, the key component to success is just timing, like being at the right place at the right time. So I definitely was a little bit early, but luckily I kind of just kept with it. And it was just kind of this thing that was always in the back of my head. So I was like, I know that these NFTs are going to be a thing. So I never just completely kind of like dropped it and let it kind of like fall to the wayside. I think what you're seeing now is that you have the quote unquote younger generation, which I guess I'm in between the older and younger generation now, which is kind of weird to say, but they're really into this digital first native digital lifestyle. So obviously the concept of digital scarcity appeals to a lot of these younger people. And that's really all that an NFT is. It's a contractual sort of programmatic way to provide digital scarcity. So the way that I kind of explain it is, a lot of the older generation, myself included on this, it says like, what's the difference? Like, this isn't great. But then when I really sat back and thought about it, I was like, this NFT is no different than a trading card, right? So if you buy a trading card from Topps or whatever, what's to stop Topps from making 100 more of those cards, right? Nothing. And so really what the NFTs are doing is it's creating, as I mentioned, this concept of digital scarcity, where when you think of people who are digital first, native digital people, that's extremely valuable, taking real world properties of scarcity into the digital space. So that's really why I'm a big believer specifically in NFTs. So I'm not really sure about the like if a JPEG file is worth $60 million. I can't answer that. But I do think that like this is the key kind of like technology to take us into this digital sort of augmented reality, metaverse, virtual reality future. So rambling a little bit, but yeah, Cliff, you can jump in.
Yeah, just to the people that don't know what NFTs even stands for, it stands for non-fungible tokens. What a non-fungible token is, it's just like what Scott said, it's a unique asset, or it's a one of one, or it's a special kind, I would say. So if people aren't familiar with Bitcoin, Bitcoin is just a digital asset, or it's a digital token. So every single Bitcoin has the same value, but an NFT is considered, each one is unique. So that's why it's a non-fungible token, while Bitcoin is considered a fungible token, where each one is the same and has the same inherent value. So that's just the general knowledge, but an NFT is a way to track who actually owns the rights to a digital piece of content. So not only can you see who owns it, you can also get paid along the way if that piece of art gets sold. So it really gives artists and collectors control of their own destiny, and it removes the middleman, which is the person that kind of says, this is worth this or this is worth that. It opens up the pool to the general public and allows anybody to create art, and allows anybody to get paid from their own individual art that they create. And that's really why it's powerful, because it gives control back to the everyday individual and the individual artist, collector, every single person that wants to create something. They can put it onto the blockchain and they can own it and sell it and profit from it. So that's why it's powerful, and you should pay attention. Reggie, you got anything you want to chime in?
Well, when you talk about the NFTs, well, India, go ahead. Anything on NFTs?
Well, so you guys are actually the first people to bring NFTs to my attention, and you were inviting me to come, and I never went to any of the panels, but it's been coming up more and more in conversation, and I'm like, okay, we're just starting to understand cryptocurrency. There's one more thing we got to come in and try to get a grip on. But as an agency, we also manage artists, and I have 3 hip hop artists that I manage, and the rights and ownership and management aspects of that for their content, for their music, for their beats, for their lyrics. This now, the dots are starting to connect in how we can even incorporate that into what we're doing. So I'm just excited. That's really kind of my only comment. But when you look at rights management and an NFT system, my question, I guess, is how can an individual company sort of own something and then have smaller lanes of NFTs that stem from that as like branches? Or is there just one system and people just kind of buy into it? Like how does that work? I'm definitely interested.
Okay. So in general, go ahead. In general, there's like a marketplace, right? So the same way you trade stocks, you need like a place to do that exchange. You can have a big company own a stock. You can be a smaller company owning a stock. It doesn't really matter the size. You can be a parent company that owns multiple subsidiary companies, and you have different stocks. So imagine just a stock market for art. So the same way you trade stocks, the same way you trade art. You can trade music on it. You can trade videos. It can be a GIF. And it's an open marketplace where people can bid and auction on it. Same way you would go to an art auction. But the art auction controls who comes in and who comes out. So if you want to put your art in a gallery, or if you want to put your music out, you need a label, you need a distributor, you need all these other things. But with the blockchain, I can go put my music out on the blockchain as an NFT, sell those rights, and profit off of it every single time it gets exchanged to somebody else. So it's the sky's the limit. Scott, you got anything you want to add to it?
Yeah, actually, in my former management consulting days, I did a project for a company that has a lot of music rights. So it starts with an S. And we did a business process mapping for payments associated with songs. And it was like, probably 100 to 200 different subtasks to actually pay. So $1 was broken down into so many different components, right? And for this company, they were actually losing money because they would have to send out a check to someone for 2 cents, and so they were paying 35 cents, for a stamp. So I'm just putting it in the music terms because you mentioned that. On the music side, what NFTs, as Cliff mentioned, what they kind of enable is this concept called a smart contract, right? So you can programmatically set up automatic payments to each of the different kind of stakeholders that own IP. So it could be artwork. I think music is a great sort of example of it, where you have each dollar is split up because you have the producer, you have the songwriter, you have if you have your kid, they may have a couple points on the song, those types of things. So what an NFT enables, on the back end, is just a simplification of the IP management, and in addition to the revenue share agreements associated with a particular piece of IP. So right now, there is no winner, so to speak, in terms of what is going to be the platform for NFTs of the future. It seems like at the moment, Ethereum is kind of in the lead, but as we all know from MySpace was in the lead for a while before Facebook, and then it kind of disappeared. But the underlying technology and the underlying want and desire to sort of simplify this IP management across a variety of different, I would say creative creative business stakeholders is definitely there. And the last thing I would add on that is, in the future, whenever that is, you could technically have a song and it could just live, as Cliff was mentioning, kind of on this marketplace. And if I was making a movie, instead of working with you directly, I could just go to this marketplace, put the song into the movie, and then you would just be paid royalties the same way that it currently exists, but just a much more efficient sort of frictionless way to go about it. So it's definitely, and I guess, sorry, one last thing is that, you know, a lot of people are familiar with blockchain and crypto from 2017, and being in the space at that point in time versus now, the difference is like they're actually people who are artistic and creative, right? So I call it, at the beginning in 2017, the first kind of like hype cycle, it was just a bunch of like tech nerds, right? So they have no idea like what people actually want. And I think this time around, what is, you know, like, so to speak, different is that it's actually kind of being led by creative people. And that's really what you need for adoption of technology, because the creatives, like music, people like yourself, you know, they know what is cool and they know how to like make things cool. They know what people want. Whereas like before, you just had a bunch of, like, to be frank, white tech bros kind of sitting in a circle talking about this like far off decentralized future. And now you have people that are like, no, this is a new way for me to like share my creations kind of like with the world, and also be fairly, I think, compensated for it, right? Because a lot of times artists, you know, like on Instagram, whatever, they just get their stuff stolen, and NFTs is really a way to sort of help the artists and creatives sort of capture the revenue and
Control.
And control, exactly, in an open sort of marketplace, right? So it's wide out there. Everyone can see how much your artwork is going for. They can see, as Cliff mentioned, how much it's been resold for, you know, so you have like a real world kind of like indicator of value. And it's, I think, the next step in taking down these like barrier to entry. So again, just using music, because you mentioned it, before you had like the record labels, now you can just go directly to SoundCloud. And before, as an artist, maybe you had to go to like Christie's or Sotheby's, whatever, to get your artwork out there. Now you just put it on OpenSea, pay $100, and if it hits, it hits. And so again, it's just more of a democratization of IP specifically for creatives.
And on that note, NFTs allow the creator, whether it be an artist, an athlete, a painter, a celebrity, to make a combination of their physical product and a digital product, combine those together, put it in a marketplace, and sell it. And now, the beauty of it for the creative is, I sell it to India, India sells it to Scott. When India sells it to Scott, because of the technology on the back end, it tracks that sale. I get another check. Scott sells it to Cliff for $1 million. Scott gets his 90%. Let's say Cliff's getting a royalty of 10%. So Cliff would get that royalty of 10% minus whatever his fees are for his people. And he would get that automatically, a digital check, actually a Bitcoin or some kind of, or Ethereum, some kind of online electronic payment, but you would get that payment. So the artist can continue to benefit every time that sells, whether it's a year, a month, a week, or 10 years down the road, they'll get that resale check. So it's just like a person that writes a song and they get those royalties every time that song is played on a TV commercial they wrote 30 years ago. They're getting a check in the mail. So it's a dynamic tracking system that allows you, as a creative, control and to benefit financially from your creations. And that is the power of the platform NFTs. Beyond all other elements, we have a company we'll be launching in May, NFTs by Athletes. And we'll be specialized in one sector, but we also do some other things. We have some artists. When I say artists, we have some painters like Artie Castell, the former professional baseball player, is a watercolor painter. He will now be doing NFTs with his art, his physical art, and his electronic digital art, and combine that and sell that. We're working with the Retired NFL Players Congress. They have autographed jackets by Hall of Famer Willie Brown, and we'll take that autographed jacket, create a digital content to go with that, and sell that as a combination. We have people like Sean Murphy Bunting of the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, Super Bowl champion, that will work with him. So the proceeds from that NFT sale will go to his nonprofit Socks for Jocks. The same with DeVere Prosy, MVP of the Grey Cup, is the championship for the Canadian Football League. And we're doing those kinds of things related to that. I did write an article a week ago that's NFTs and what they are. And I'll put that in the chat so you can take a look at that article, and I kind of give you some background, some information to kind of explain the process and kind of figure out how you can get in that space. It is going to be here. It's been around over 10 years. It is just now sliding into the mainstream. It is still the wild, wild west. There's not one platform that controls everything and anything. So that is the beauty of putting things on blockchain. And that's the beauty of being able to control your background and your stuff. Scott, you're smiling. What'd you say? What did I say that makes you smile? No, it wasn't me.
No, it was you. Like I just feel like this is awesome. Like,
and Scott's got a great project he's doing with Danny Green, right? With his championship ring, and tell him about that project.
Yeah, so I'm working with Danny Green, and what we're doing is we're creating an augmented reality NFT associated with his championship ring. So what we're doing is we're creating a high resolution sort of digital twin of the physical ring, and we're going to sell that. And I think what we're doing that's a little bit different is we're focused more on the experience around an NFT. I say that because a lot of time, like, again, not to beat a dead horse, but basically someone paid $60 million for a JPEG, and that is the Beeple through Christie's. But when you think about it, part of the reason why you have art and like NFTs is, to be honest, just to like flex on people. So imagine you've paid $60 million for something, and the best you can do is sort of show it on your phone. It's like a crazy concept. You can't like put the authentic version in like a music. It's still going to be a copy. So what we're doing that's a little bit different is we're focused on the experience aspect. So we're partnering potentially with this company called Portal, and they make these holograms. So if you're familiar with kind of, I think from like 2012, they had like the Tupac hologram at a concert. So the people who are behind kind of that technology, they've created kind of, right now it's pretty big. It's about like 6 feet tall, maybe 3 feet in terms of depth. But they basically created this tool that allows you to project kind of like holograms into a space. So we're connecting the Ring AFT to that tool, the Ring NFT to that tool. And then the last part is that we're taking advantage of, again, this idea of digital scarcity, but really looking at how do you connect the digital world to the real world. And we're doing a geolocated augmented reality NFT. So you can see a large kind of version of the ring if you go to a specific location in augmented reality and download an app. So I think in the space, if we're able to pull it off, like we have a tight deadline. So we have, I think, 20 more days, 25 days to kind of get this done. But I think it's definitely going to be like one of the cooler NFT drops, so to speak, in the space. And it's really because we're focused on not like the key part of that, right? So if you spend $60 million for something, I mean, I don't know. If you spend $5,000 for a piece of art, the point is not just owning it, but you kind of want to flex on people a little bit. And I think that part of the space is a little bit missing. So, you have people who are spending all this money for stuff that's just on their phone. And that's kind of crazy to me. So what we looked at was like, okay, what is a cool kind of thing that exists in the world that we can make a digital version of and sort of create a new way for people to kind of like flex on other people. It's like, hey, come to my house, check out this augmented reality like ring, or like go to this location and you can see this AR ring that I own. And I really think that hopefully that's going to bring a lot more traction to the space as well. And I think, just by being first or one of the first in thinking about it this way, partnering with Mr. Grant and Cliff, I think it could be a pipeline of athletes that want to get this experience, right? So it's one thing to just put something on the blockchain. It's another thing to be like, yo, come check this out, right? And that's really what the focus is of the Danny Green NFT drop.
And
you can find him. Scott, put your contact information in the chat, please. Go ahead, sir.
And for people that don't know who Danny Green is, Danny Green just won the championship with the Lakers. So what he's doing is basically turning his championship ring into a digital asset, which is an NFT. And then he's also adding an augmented reality version into it. So Scott, you're the augmented reality expert. Can you just explain augmented reality in 1 or 2 sentences to people that aren't familiar with it?
Sure. So if you've ever used a Snapchat filter, Instagram filter, you've used augmented reality. That's kind of like where I start. That's like the basic version. If you've ever seen the game Pokemon Go, that's also augmented reality. So what augmented reality is, again, it's in this digital to physical kind of conversion, and that's why NFTs play such a big role, is it's really a way to put digital objects in the real world, right? So it's like on your phone, you know, you have like cat ears or a filter, that's like one example, or you have like an augmented reality Pikachu kind of like hopping around in the real world, sort of in front of your phone. And so it's the future, you know, like I believe personally that augmented reality glasses are going to be the future. And this is like Black writers. So really why I got involved into tech period was actually because of augmented reality and the intersection of augmented reality and machine vision. And I would go to all of these conferences and there were no other Black people around. So, and this is legitimately going to be the future. So imagine a conference about mobile phones 20 years ago and there are no Black people around and there's no one to like think about like, okay, how does this work for Black people? Like what are the Black experiences we can put in augmented reality, et cetera. So like being totally honest, the augmented reality stuff and in particular how it intersects with machine vision. And so just to explain, machine vision is basically teaching computers how to see like people. I would be in a lot of meetings and like just being the only Black person in the room, the things that people were saying, I was like, there's no diversity in this space at all. And when you think of a technology like machine vision, right, why it's important to have Black people involved is legitimately how cameras function works worse on Black people, right? Because it works by capturing reflected light, and then you translate that into sort of zeros and ones, and then you teach the computer how to recognize those zeros and ones and say like, this is Scott in this video, or this is India, this is Reggie, this is Cliff. And what I found was that there were literally no Black people anywhere to be found, and like no one is thinking about the bias. So now I think people are talking about it more, but like one of the keys I think for Black people moving forward is we can't just be talking about things that are happening now. We need to like switch, instead of playing catch up, to being like ahead. And I think augmented reality is one space where, especially when you think of culture and all of that, like just how Black people sort of control the culture at the moment, augmented reality is going to be the new kind of, and to a lesser extent, virtual reality is going to be the new type of way to sort of broadcast culture and create these interactions. So that's kind of like why I'm super passionate about it, and just making sure that like, you know, there are people that look like us kind of involved in this space. But I do think the next kind of group of billionaires are going to be augmented reality first, right? So if you think of all the people that have become billionaires from creating apps in the App Store for mobile phones, the next sort of phase of that, which could be in 2 years, 3 years, 5 years, 10 years, who knows, is going to be augmented reality first, augmented reality, smart glasses, those types of things. I think it's very important that we have Black kind of leaders in the space. And honestly, like I actually did research on this. If you go on like Facebook, Instagram, their LinkedIns, and look at the people in augmented reality, no Black people at all, right? And it makes you wonder.
I know some.
It's
a handful, but I know some.
Right.
We are not the standard in the room as it always is.
Exactly.
We have to just adapt, adjust, take advantage of the opportunity and get in the room. And that's why I feel it's important that people be on platforms like this and listen to people like you and Cliff and India and John Matthews. Hopefully can eventually get on, because you are a resource and a wealth of information. And as a matter of fact, Scott is raising money for his project. So shoot him an email, put a little gas money into the process, and watch it rise. Come on. That's what it's all about.
Hey,
As Dr. Claude Anderson said, we have to partner with people that look like us to get elevated. I mean, I do 95% of my business. I mean, I'm about making money, but I'm always trying to reach out to people that look like me to partner with to elevate them, so that, because our people have elevated me. Go ahead, Miss India.
Absolutely. I was just going to say, I mean, when you talk about the augmented reality and going into these spaces and there not being people of color, not that it doesn't exist, but it's less prevalent. These spaces are so important because it's also an economic gap that will happen if we don't have early access to the information. If the young people at the high school level, junior high school level, don't have access to information around augmented reality, around mobile development, around coding. And we see this influx of programs that are coming in, but it's something that we have to be diligent about, right? So because if we don't get that information now and we're not implementing and creating these platforms, we're going to miss that billionaire mark that you mentioned. That's going to happen. Just like with the internet age, we missed that. I mean, I put a little bit of money into some cryptocurrency recently. And I still can't say that I'm confident about, what it's going to do, but I know that I wasn't here for, the Google and the Facebook, but I'd rather take that chance. And I think that's something else when it comes to these spaces around tech. We Black people and people of color can't be so afraid to take a risk, because I want to sit back, 10 years from now and say, I was a part of that boom. So, I definitely appreciative of these type of platforms. And even when it comes down to early access to information, I mean, one thing that we're doing is, we're looking at what's the most widely and easily consumed types of content. And that's how I moved into entertainment, because people are watching TV, people are watching film, people are using mobile app games, people are reading comic books, even as antiquated as it may sound, it's a huge market. And so how can we create space for people to participate in these industries? And so one thing that we're doing is working with a junior high school and teaching those students how to create content with their mobile phones. And you guys know this, some people are shooting full-on feature films and not knowing that their phone is actually capable of 4K, right? So, I would love to see more programs where we're bringing youth together and teaching them, and having workshops around game development, around film and TV production, around coding and augmented reality. Maybe there's an opportunity for us or even individuals in the audience to think about how we can do that and get ahead of the curve. NFTs included. I'll be signing up as well. So it's very, very interesting.
It's about adapting to what's happening.
Mm-hmm.
And everything is always evolving. Mm-hmm. In 1996, this stuff was happening. I was in the tech sector, and we did some things with companies that are now thriving. Some companies didn't succeed, mm-hmm. but those people that were doing those companies made some gas money. Mm-hmm. Make your piece of the pie, go on to the next project, invest in projects like the ones that Scott's in India and Cliff have. And there are so many of us out there doing things. I mean, just get in the game and don't worry about not being perfect and not making mistakes. Failure part of your steps to success. You have to do. It's just about doing. Cliff?
Yeah, I would just like to add to it. As human beings, how we evolve is through technology. If you go back to the modern days, if you go back to the Industrial Revolution, the Second Industrial Revolution, this is what allowed us to be able to trade commerce, globalization. It's all technology is the foundation of it all. So with Bitcoin and cryptocurrency, all it is just reimagining the financial system. So the current financial system has not really been innovated much based on the history of money and the history of financial transactions. Typically, it's the central banks that control monetary transactions, financial institutions. With Bitcoin, it's removing that central power and it's putting the power back into the hands of the people. So NFTs are similar to just removing the power from these central organizations that control how art is sold, how intellectual property is sold, how it's transacted between the masses and between us as individuals. So just look at the payment system, right? Before it was credit cards, it was cash. When it was cash, it was checks. And then everybody started using these things that had this stripe on the back and putting all their money on it. And it was this plastic device that made people really uncomfortable. Like, you know, it's like, no, I'm used to having cash. Then it became people used to having credit and swiping their devices. Now people are paying payments and making transactions on mobile devices. And before, if you wanted to send $1 billion, let's just say if you were a big company and I wanted to trade $1 billion to another company in another country, the fastest way to do it was to get on a plane with that $1 billion and to literally bring it there, because even doing it through the current financial system would take 48 hours, 72 hours. But with Bitcoin, I can do that transaction for $1 billion, multiple billions of dollars in 3 hours. With some of these different cryptocurrencies, you can do it in 15 minutes, and it removes the amount of cost that it takes to move financial transactions, whether it's $1, whether it's $1 billion, it doesn't really matter. You're removing the intermediary party that controls the central banks and the central financial systems, and you're giving the power back to the people. So the blockchain technology, the reason it's important is because it's a ledger. So with that ledger, it records every single transaction the same way that banks record transactions. So now imagine an open source or an open data where everybody can see. So if I sent Reggie $20, every person in this room can see that transaction. Every person in this room can see that the transaction is confirmed, and everybody can know that the money left Cliff's wallet and went to Reggie's wallet. So that's all Bitcoin and blockchain technology in a general gist. It's just an innovation of the current financial system and an innovation of the technological advancements of how we transact money. And NFTs are just an innovation of ownership. So that's just the general technology on a surface level. And obviously there's various nuances as you start reading, but that's the technology. It's just an advancement of what we were used to, and it's making our lives easier, and it's giving us more control. So embrace technology.
And
taxes, death, change.
Booyah!
Taxes, death, change.
And COVID-19.
Adapt, adjust, figure it out. Just keep moving forward. Figure out a path to success. You got to be in the room. You have to have the conversations. You have to be smart enough to educate yourself. You don't have to know everything. Look at these people. These are resources. Every one of these people on this panel throughout this program are resources for you. Absolutely. We'll be doing this again shortly. India, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off. Go ahead.
I was just going to say absolutely. And that's one thing that I'm really, really into is networking. And I think it's important that people have conversations, and that if you're looking, because especially moving to LA, there's so many roadblocks to getting, to the distributor, to getting to the executives. And that's one thing that I want to see change, is there being more easy access to the people who make decisions and have access to the resources to be able to provide opportunity to people who need them. One of my clients is a company called Cover 360, and they're operating as a virtual digital incubator accelerator, doing skills development, creating, access to resources, access to mogul coaching, and more, essentially fueling workforce development in a digital space. And, one thing that I said I wanted to do was teach a class on networking. How, even if you're an introvert, how do you start a conversation with someone? It could be something as simple as just complimenting them on their watch, and that being a spark. But we have to teach each other how to talk to each other so that we can pursue the things that we want. I remember sitting back, and I love advertising, so I was always watching commercials. Most people turn the TV down, but I would turn the TV on and turn the TV up and kind of see what's happening here. And I would have ideas, and from time to time see that idea come up in a commercial. I'm like, oh my God, why didn't I do that? I didn't have the hope. I didn't have the network. I didn't have the know-how. I didn't have the encouragement or direction on how do you get up and start an idea. And to see people like you, Scott and Cliff and Reginald, who are just out here taking leaps and just going for it. I know that is a part of the formula. And I think people think that you have to do a ton of planning, but a lot of it is getting out and getting started. And I will say on that note, because I believe in you need to create an open door, is, you know, I'm looking for something to invest in as well. So, you know, if there are people on this in the audience, or even you guys who, you know, have projects that we can talk about, I'm trying to figure out how to create some residual income. So I just want to put that out there to the audience for sure.
Yeah, and just to kind of piggyback on the networking thing. So taking it back to the beginning, one of the reasons, again, why I got into augmented reality was I think that augmented reality for networking provides like a huge barrier. And so one of the reasons around networking and how AR, just to bring in the technology aspect, how it can help is when I was doing consulting, I was at an event for the company, and one of my coworkers from a different office came up to me and asked like if I was in the minority inclusion program, because he thought like that I was like applying for this. And really, when you think of these technologies like augmented reality and also blockchain, one of the things that they can do is they can increase trust between people and reduce kind of these like implicit and unconscious biases that people might have in networking. So I like, again, everything that you're saying, India and Cliff, about networking and blockchain, like I think that these technologies are really the future. And, you know, just to give a like side example, when we're paying people in Africa for the energy project, they tell us actively, don't pay me through Western Union, pay me through Bitcoin and Ethereum. And I think that to me was a very interesting thing, because I don't think that I would have gotten that response here in the US. So there is this, as Mr. Grant mentioned, there is this sort of idea where it's death, taxes, and change, where, you know, people abroad that are struggling, so to speak, they're more willing and I guess amenable to the change, and they're ahead of the game. So in the Bitcoin and blockchain space, actually Nigeria is one of the top countries in the world in terms of transacting with blockchain, right? And why? So when the people there were like, oh no, pay us in Ethereum, it was really fascinating, because you have all these economists, et cetera, that can tell you all these things. But what that person got right was that if we had paid them in Naira, they would have lost, I think, 40% of the value, right? But we paid them in Ethereum, and they ended up making, like, probably at this point, if they still have it, like 300% on that transaction, right? And it just really goes to being accepting of change. But I think it's also taking risk and not trying to do what has worked in the past, but trying to figure out like what is next, and being willing to sort of, like, as Mr. Grant, Cliff, yourself, India, we've all kind of done, taking the leap, so to speak, and saying like, I'm not actually, no one has charted this path before, but I think this could be something in the future. And if it doesn't work out, I'm at least, you know, in the right rooms with the right people, hearing kind of what's going on, building my network with all of these really smart people. So even if my specific idea doesn't work out, I'm around kind of all the people that are movers and shakers and pushing us to that kind of next level and next stage. So I think it's so important to have these kinds of conversations where we're bridging. There's obviously like a monetary gap, but I think one of the more important things that I'm learning is this concept of like an information gap, where there are things that, like, you know, we may all know ourselves, but we don't actually like just communicate to other people, build our network and sort of lift each other up, because we might think of it more as like a competition when it's not, right? It's more about sort of getting your team, so to speak, together, and you're all moving forward and accomplishing a goal. And I think you see, now that I've been involved in Silicon Valley, like a lot of these guys that like Tesla and Elon Musk, it's really just, he was in the right room making a payments app, made money, made friends with all these people that also made money with him. And they were like, well, what other ideas do you have? And he was like, I have this idea for a rocket company and a car company. And they're like, okay, how much money do you need? Because I've already worked with you before. This original thing that you did, it might not have worked out, but I know you're smart. You're in the room. We're having the right conversation. So I don't need to see a deck. I don't need to see anything. Just tell me how much money you need. And I think having conversations like this kind of fosters and facilitates that mindset.
Makes sense. Now, John Matthews is John. John, you on?
Yeah, I'm here.
All right, so John had technical difficulties. Doesn't matter. He's the inventor of several projects. John, give us a thumbnail and do your thing. I know who you are. I support you with eBless and Prothemus Technologies. And again, just briefly on that conversation, it's about being in the room, developing your network, and evolving relationships. People do business with people they're comfortable with. Have lots of conversations to get to the one that makes sense, but you have to evolve relationships. John, go ahead, do your thing.
All right, I'll be real quick. Hey, look, man, I enjoyed the conversation just listening in. All right, so look, John Matthews, CEO and founder of both Prothemus Innovation and Prothemus Technology. I'm the creator of both the eBless app as well as the Barrage, a patented compact impact and weather effects simulator for video gaming and watching movies. It will be released sometime this summer, and we're really excited about that. One of the main things that I'm here to talk about, Reggie mentioned, was eBless, which you can see on my shirt, which is our peer-to-peer payment app. So it makes it easy to send money. So just think about Cash App, but Black owned. That's what we do. And we've been doing it for a little bit over a year. Now we're about to launch our first round of financing through WeFunder. So we're about to launch that. So we're really excited. And so Cliff has been talking to me about NFTs and things like that. So I'm really excited to be a part of the conversation. So sorry for the late chime in, but I was enjoying it. I was enjoying the discussion.
So you were enjoying the discussion and go ahead, Cliff.
I was just saying, happy to have you here, John. Go
ahead, I
said,
again, we have dynamic people here. I see everybody's putting their name in the thing and say who to connect. Again, all you have to do is click on the event, click on the people in the chat area to your right, click on event, click on people, and they give you an entire list of the 280 or 300 people that have been on the platform. Click on any individual. You can send them a direct email and direct message. You can even video chat with them. So it's all available to you. You can connect with anybody on the platform today by just clicking on event, people, and it's going to give you an entire list available to do that. So again, this is how events will continue to happen, even as we go back into some sense of how it used to be. And I don't say normalcy, I say how it used to be. The world adapts, it changes, adjusts, and we just have to modify. And every live event now will have some kind of online component of it. We're connected with people across the country today. Literally. I live in Los Angeles. I'm in Seattle today. Dr. Rosie's in Los Angeles. John is in Washington, D.C. Scott and Cliff are local, and India local here. I say local. They're in Los Angeles region. But we're connected to people across the country. I do business with people across the country. Thursday, we did an ESI pitch event. After he's taking business, I had a presenter from Switzerland. So there's no boundaries. The only boundaries is your work ethic, your determination to succeed, and you just got to get out there and just do. It's okay to make mistakes. Just do it. Any closing remarks? We're supposed to be done here in 60 seconds. So reach out to anybody on the panel. Again, Scott's got a project he's raising money for. John Matthews has got a project, eBless, he's raising money for. We need to get some of us invested in this instead of some of the people that I will be talking to that don't look like us. So whenever possible, I like to connect the dots with people that look like me. If not, I still have to get the money. Now, kids want to eat more once a day, and they will eat more once a day, whether God wants to or not. We'll figure it out. Guys, we love everybody that's participating. We're about 135 people still on the platform. We've had nearly 300 so far visiting, and we'll be here for the next 2 hours. The next panel is at 2 o'clock. Appreciate you all, guys. Thank you for taking the time out of your day to share your knowledge, your wisdom, your expertise, and to add value. Somebody in this crowd got value from this. So appreciate you all. Thank you so very much for Dr. Rosie and her team. And I'm Reginald Grant, and I will see you in the next round.
Thank you.
Ronald, just click on John's email. Click on his name. Go to event, people, click on John. Johnny's asking for your email. Pump it in both the event and the stage sessions, please. Appreciate everybody. We're out.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye.